Ever get that feeling that there's, more to reality than what we just see, like some hidden architecture holding everything together?
Absolutely. That fundamental curiosity, isn't it? This drive to understand the invisible frameworks.
Yeah, exactly. We're always looking for those aha moments. And today we're really going deep into that kind of exploration.
Sounds fascinating.
For this deep dive, we're getting into some pretty profound ideas from William C. Chittick's The Sufi Path of Knowledge.
Ah, Chidek.
We're focusing on the metaphysics, specifically through the eyes of, well, a really central figure in Sufi thought, Ibn al-Arabi.
And it's worth pointing out, Chidek's book is, it's a very detailed, very scholarly work. It really digs into the philosophical roots of Sufism.
Definitely not light reading. So
Sure.
think of us as your guides, maybe. Our mission today is basically to pull out the key insights, about God, the cosmos, our place, that sort of thing.
Focusing on what exactly?
We're going to zoom in on two big concepts, the divine names and something called the scale of the law.
Right, two core pillars of Ibn al-Arabi's thought.
Exactly, trying to give you the essence, the blueprint, without getting lost in absolutely every detail.
And Ibn al-Arabi, he's just, well, foundational. His ideas shape so much of Sufism, and they're still incredibly relevant for contemplation today. A unique lens on existence, really.
Okay, so let's jump right in. The divine names. This feels like the starting point for understanding Ibn al-Arabi's reality.
It really is. You hear about the names of God a lot in Islam, of course. Our source really stresses how they act as this connecting thread all through the Quran and Islamic teachings.
A connecting thread. How so?
Well, they aren't just like names or labels. They represent the actual attributes of God. But more than that, they point to the realities and the effects of God out there in the cosmos.
Okay, so not just descriptions, but active principles.
Exactly, active principles, dynamic forces, you could say. So when the source talks about the all-merciful Al-Ran, it's presented as this fundamental divine form, reflecting God's creative power. Chittick links it to the idea of the breath of the all-merciful.
The breath, with the very start of creation, that first outpouring.
Precisely, a powerful image for the origin of everything. So each divine name, then, signifies a specific kind of relationship, a particular influence between God and, well, everything else.
So if you take a name like the Knowing, Al-Alim, it's not just saying God knows stuff. It implies this constant divine awareness that's like everywhere.
Exactly, permeating everything. And the source highlights how the cosmos and us, humans, we actually manifest these names in different ways, to different degrees.
So we see bits of wisdom or power or compassion in the world and in ourselves, and that's a reflection.
That's the idea. Ibn al-Arabi sees the universe as this ongoing unfolding of God's attributes. And we're like mirrors reflecting that divine tapestry. Imperfect mirrors, maybe, but mirrors nonetheless.
Okay, that makes sense. But if there are many names, does that mean many gods? I imagine that question comes up.
It does. And Ibn al-Arabi is very clear on this. He stresses the underlying unity. These names aren't separate beings. They're just different facets, different ways of looking at the one, single divine essence.
Like different angles on a diamond showing different light, but it's still one diamond.
That's a good analogy,
Yeah.
yeah. And this leads to another really interesting idea, the engendered names, Al-Azma al-Mukawana.
Engendered names, how are they different?
These aren't the primary names from Scripture exactly. They arise from God's actions in the world, from the creatures he's created. They reflect his attributes as they appear within creation, his immanence, you could say.
Okay, give me an example.
Think of the provider, Ar-Razak. It's rooted in a primary attribute, sure, but it's also engendered by the very act of God providing sustenance to creation. We see the providing, and that points back to the name.
Ah, right, like seeing someone's art, the result of their skill, which then tells you something about the artist.
Exactly. And the source also talks about a kind of hierarchy among the names. Some are broader, more encompassing.
Like the name Allah. The text presents that as the most comprehensive one.
Yes, Allah is seen as the ultimate name, the one that gathers all the other attributes into itself. It's the central point.
And how does this connect to the real al-Haq? That's another term that comes up.
Right, the real is like the ultimate truth, the underlying divine reality itself. The names, in this view, are the ways through which the real becomes known and manifests. They're paths to understanding the essence, which is otherwise, well, beyond our grasp.
So by thinking about the wise, the just, the merciful, we get glimpses of that ultimate real.
That's the idea, and understanding this ties directly into servitude, ubudiyah.
Servitude. How does that fit?
Well, it's not about being, a slave in the negative sense. It's more about recognizing these divine names, these attributes reflected within us too, and then consciously trying to live in accordance with them, aligning ourselves.
So embodying those qualities as best we can.
Exactly. It's about that alignment. And crucially, these names aren't just abstract concepts. They have real effects shaping the cosmos, shaping our individual lives.
Okay, that's a lot to take in just on the divine names. Wow.
It's incredibly rich, yeah.
So let's shift gears slightly, but it feels connected. Let's talk about the scale of the law, Al-Mizan. This sounds like it relates to divine judgment and order.
It does. Al-Mizan is fundamental for understanding the inherent order and, yes, justice within creation. But the key thing here, which Chittick emphasizes, is that this scale isn't some external rule book imposed from outside.
Oh, so it's not like a list of cosmic do's and don'ts.
Not exactly. It's more like it's woven into the fabric of creation itself, into our nature. It reflects the balance, the interconnectedness that God established from the beginning, like the natural laws governing how things work almost.
So it's intrinsic, built in.
Right. And remember the divine names we just talked about?
Yeah.
Attributes like justice, al-alal, they are central to this scale.
Yeah.
The very idea of justice flows from that name and informs this inherent balance.
Okay, so when we talk about consequences or things being out of balance, that's measured against this internal scale.
That's the perspective, yes. Our actions, the state of the world, they're constantly interacting with this inherent scale of the law. And it operates on multiple levels.
Multiple levels,
Like individual lives, sure, but also the dynamics within societies, even the harmony of the whole cosmos. Everything is subject to this balancing principle.
what about our role in this? Our understanding ilm and our intentions, Naya? Where do they fit in? The source mentions them.
They're critical. Knowledge, understanding the divine names and the principles of this scale helps us grasp God's purpose, the inherent order, and intention. That becomes our guide.
Oh, so.
When we consciously align our intentions and then our actions with that divine order, striving for wisdom and justice as reflected in the names, that's when we find harmony with the scale.
So it's about conscious alignment, not just like accidental good behavior.
Exactly. It's about understanding the deeper principles and acting from that understanding. And this framework, the scale, it also helps make sense of things that seem wrong or difficult.
You mean like suffering or apparent injustice?
Yes. From this perspective, apparent imbalances or hardships aren't necessarily random chaos. They can be seen as part of a larger pattern, a way the scale is working to restore balance or teach something within its framework. The universe sort of self-corrects in a way.
That definitely offers a different perspective on challenges. And the prophets, the source says they guide us in navigating this scale.
Yes, the prophets are seen as the living embodiments of living in tune with the scale, with the divine will. They demonstrate the principles, they show the path through their lives and teachings, they illuminate how to navigate it.
Okay. And one last piece here. This tension between God being totally beyond us, transcendent tanzi, and also intimately close, imminent tashbih. How does the scale help with that?
The scale acts almost like a bridge. It provides the framework for understanding how both can be true. The divine names themselves show both aspects, right? Some emphasize transcendence, others immanence.
Right.
The scale of the law, as it operates within creation, reflecting God's justice and wisdom, clearly shows his immanence, his involvement. But its ultimate source is the transcendent divine, ensuring its perfection. So the scale itself embodies that connection between the two.
It's the operating principle connecting the beyond and the within.
Okay.
In that sense, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive into Ibn al-Arabi via Chittick, we've really seen the incredible depth of the divine names. They're not just words, they're active realities revealing God's nature and his connection to everything.
Absolutely dynamic aspects of the one reality.
And then there's the scale of the law, al-Mizan. Not an external rule book, but this inherent principle of balance, order, and consequence woven right into existence itself.
A self-regulating system almost, reflecting divine justice and wisdom. Taken together, it paints a picture of the universe as this constant dynamic unfolding of God's attributes, operating according to an inherent perfect balance.
It really does. It's a framework that invites you to look beneath the surface, doesn't it? To see the deeper connections, that constant interplay between the divine and the world.
It definitely changes how you might look at things. So maybe here's the final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. How does really grappling with these ideas, the living reality of the divine names, and this intrinsic scale of law, how might that actually reshape your perception, your view of the world, and maybe even your own sense of place within this whole intricate cosmic picture?
Yeah, that's That's definitely something worth pondering.